let's observe traffic flow in a router and a stick configuration so we get to know it a lot better. Now, it starts off as saying traffic from PC1 enters the switch on VLAN 10 and crosses to the router. Wait. We gotta do a better job explaining things than that. We want traffic to go from PC1 to PC2. That's the ultimate goal. Now, what is PC1 going to do? PC1, let's say we just do a ping. And we're pinging 10.1.20.5. Well, the first thing that PC1 will do is it'll recognize that this is remote communication because the subnet is outside of PC1's subnet. That's how it works. The client recognizes this is traffic that must leave the subnet. Then the client must look for its default gateway. Now, the default gateway is the router interface right there. But the client doesn't necessarily know the MAC address of the router interface. So an ARP request would have happened first. So PC1 ARPs for default gateway. Let's move that to a better spot. That's step one. And that ARP is a broadcast. That's going to come in. Now, the switch is going to flood that to all ports except the port that it came in on in VLAN 10. And that'll necessarily cross the trunk. The router will say, hey, you're ARPing for me. And it will respond with the MAC address of its interface so that PC1 associates the default gateway IP address with the MAC address. Now we can start to do what they're showing here. So now PC1 is going to forward to the MAC address of the router's interface. This is normal operation. This is how clients send to their default gateway. They reference the MAC address of the default gateway, but still specify the far side IP address. So PC1 forwards out to the MAC address of the router, whatever that is. We don't see it here, no problem. And the switch gets that. The switch says, I know where to send that traffic because I'm going to forward based on the MAC address. The switch has no clue that this is leaving the subnet. You need to internalize that. The switch is just forwarding based on MAC addresses. That's what a layer 2 switch does. Frame comes in, destination MAC address is the router, boom, go up to the router. That's it. Now, the router gets this traffic for it at layer 2, but at layer 3 it says, please route, because I'm not targeting you. I'm targeting this IP address that exists elsewhere. And the router looks at its routing table and it says, I know where to send that. I know where to send that. And it is going to look at a connected route. Connected routes exist when we have an IP address on an up-up interface. And this interface is up, right? We have to assume that it is. So the router will route out this port. Now, let's just say it had already ARPed for the client. If it hadn't, it would do that at that point. So it can know the MAC address of the client. The router forwards that down, and now it jumped. Came in on VLAN 10, but it's going back down as VLAN 20 information. The switch gets that frame, and it says, this is VLAN 20 frame, and I'm going to look at the MAC address that it is supposed to be forwarded to. The router must encapsulate the MAC address of PC2. It would have done that based on its MAC address table, based on the ARP cache of the router. The switch looks at the destination MAC address and it says, let's send that down to the right port because certainly the MAC address table of the switch has PC2, and then it's going to go down to the client. So that is the magic behind the communication flow for routing on a stick. Make no mistake about it, an essential ingredient is the connected routes that exist on the sub-interfaces, or the connected routes that are constructed by having these extra interfaces on the router.